Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining this series of 12 webinars that gears you with actionable insights and energy to lead at your very best in this crisis. Particularly thanks to our loyal followers in New Zealand, where it's 9 p.m., and in parts of South America, where it's 5 a.m. It's such a joy to be with you all, as every second Thursday of the month. We started our leadership journey a few weeks ago, right? By taking care of your stamina and your sharpness. And then we discussed leadership fundamentals in crisis. Then we geared you with some specific coaching skills so you can get the best thinking from your people one by one in crisis time. And then last session, we looked at ways to trigger and catalyze collective intelligence from your teams. And a natural continuation of this is to help you motivate and remotivate when needed your team in crisis time. Last time, you remember, we had discussed European football, and we're going to start this time with American football. It's only fair to our participants in North America, right? And I am going to take you also to the movie, right? And we're going to watch a special passage from the movie called Any Given Sunday, where Al Pacino is the coach of an American football team. And the story is that it's half season, and they've lost every single match of the first half of the season. And today, half season, they've played the first half of their match, and guess what? They lost. And the idea is the coach has 2-3 minutes to remotivate them before they play the second half. And if they win it, then they still have a chance to stay in the league. It's a crucial moment. And the background, if you wish, is these players are very self-centered, not really team players, actually in behaviors, right? And there is no team spirit at all. And that's why they've lost, right? And I'd like to invite you to watch the coach, look at what he does to remotivate them, and write in the chat box some things you see the coach, Al Pacino, doing that effectively remotivate these people and make them believe that together we can win and together we will win. Here we go with the movie in the back room of the players.
In either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's gonna win that inch. And I know if I'm gonna have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. The 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You gotta look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're gonna see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're gonna see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're gonna do the same for him. Right? That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals. That's football, guys. That's all it is. Now, what are you gonna do?
And that gave perhaps the most famous motivational speech. Certainly when you search on Google for motivation, that video comes at the very top of it. And the essence of the speech, as you can read on this slide, is life's a game of inches. The inches we need are everywhere around us, and that's very true in crisis time, just the same. They are in every break of the game. They are in every minute and every second. We fight for that inch. We tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch, because we know that when we add all those inches, that's going to make the difference between winning and losing. And so with this, my first question to you today is, which inch can you conquer today as a team to get yourself closer to a victorious exit from this crisis? Now, I'm going to give you lots of tips, practical tips to motivate your team. Your team. I would like that you keep in mind that you've got to find some inches, and perhaps some of the tips will actually inspire you some, because the inches are also in the team's performance, open-mindedness, creativity, and in the first place, motivation or energy, if you will, right? So let me start just before the tips by reminding you what we saw in our first webinar on stamina and sharpness, that there are fundamental boosters of energy and motivation. And they are anything that's going to boost our status or self-esteem, our sense of certainty, our sense of autonomy, our sense of relatedness, and our sense of fairness. Yeah, and then, of course, we're going to use this in the tips I'm going to share with you. There are additional boosters of motivation. And some come from Abraham Maslow and some from other psychologists. They've also found that learning and growing are powerful motivation drivers, that as well helping others really boost our energy. For artist-minded people, the search of beauty and aesthetics is also super powerful motivator, and eventually reaching a purpose or aspiring to one's purpose, that means practically making a difference, is also gearing people with amazing energy. And that's where I want to say that in a crisis, it's good to rediscuss with your people what the purpose of the business, the big why, if you will, and how that connects with who they are, in fact, right? And which part of their personality can the search of that purpose activate. And for this, for inspiration on this, I'd love to invite you to watch, when you have time, a great video of Simon Sinek called How Great Leaders Inspire Actions, over 60 million views on TED. And he's addressing the question, why are we doing what we are doing? And his conclusion is that companies who have a clear why, right, a clear sense of purpose, of making a difference, attract customers way more easily and succeed with a lot more energy available from employees than others, in fact. And there is also an excellent article from Boston Consulting Group that was published on Monday, actually, where they interviewed CEOs about how they were leading in this crisis. And one thing that came across almost every CEO interviewed was that purpose motivates a lot of people, especially when you can articulate that what you are doing is more than just making money, right? Just click on interviewed on this slide when you receive the slide deck towards the end of the program today, and you'll access to that BCG article. Now, moving on with the tips. And the first one, believe it or not, is listening. I mean, for real, listening to others will motivate them big time. Let me ask you a question again, right? Who in your life does really, I mean, really listen to you? Think of it. Probably very few people. Yeah. Most times I ask a question, the answer is my dog. My dog listens fully to me. Yeah. So when you listen to your people, your team members, right, you do them a great favor, right? They feel you value them, you're interested in what they've got to say, right? That's, of course, very highly motivating. And on this, I like to direct you to an article I contributed to in Forbes about 12 concrete ways to listen. Just click on the picture bottom right of this slide when you receive the slide deck. All right. Tip number 2, find out the motivation boosters of your team members and activate them. So you're going to ask me, yes, Jean-Francois, fine, but how do I do that? Easy, right? After a weekend, ask them, hey, what was the best moment of your weekend? I'm curious to know. So then they're going to tell you some stuff, right? And you're going to ask that very same question 3 times. I mean, after 3 weekends, right? So then you'll have 3 answers. And the first answer perhaps will be, I had such a great time with my good friends from university old days, right? So that will mean relationships are an important booster of motivation to your team member. So then look for opportunities to activate that booster for him or her. Yeah. Second weekend, perhaps your team member will tell you, and listen well, wow, you know, I did that MBA part-time in the evenings for 2 years, and this weekend was the graduation. And there I was with my beautiful university outfit, you know, and all my friends and family were there taking selfies of me. That was such a high. Yeah, so the booster here is self-esteem, not learning, right? It's not about the learning, it's about being admired by other people. So fine, then you can know that that team member will be motivated when you give praise or recognize his or her achievements, right? And say the third weekend, your team member tells you, oh, the best moment this weekend, you know, was just walking alone in the woods. That was so peaceful, and wow, just being alone out there was great. So that means the motivator of your team member there is freedom or autonomy, right? They just go to the wood alone, walk around to enjoy being themselves with 0 constraints, right? And there you have 3 ways to activate the motivation of your team member. Relationships, belonging to a team, and self-esteem through praise, recognition, for instance, and autonomy. So, for example, giving them project where they have a lot of room to maneuver, right? And of course, not micromanaging them one bit. So now let's go to tip number 3. And this is about making your team members aware that they learn on the job. I mean, like a lot, right? Everybody does, but almost nobody knows. Yeah, and for that, I suggest that you have regular kind of coffee chats or friendly conversation, and you just ask that question: what have you learned this past month on the job? First time you ask the question, let me tell you, your team member will look at you like you ask a weird question, and perhaps he or she will think you're worried that they're not happy or whatever. And probably they will tell you, hey, boss, I learned nothing, but don't you worry, I'm happy, nothing's wrong. And then make the question easier for them and ask, hey, no, I'm curious about what you learned from your successes this month, right? And also what you learned from your failures this month, you know, and what you learned from the new people you met on the job this month. Tell me about all of that, please. And then your team member will recognize that aside of perhaps going to some training programs or watching free webinars like today, they learn every day of their work life. And that really matters because it makes them more valuable professionals and therefore opens up a better future for them. So it's highly motivating. Tip number 4, demand that each negative comment is reworded with a solution-focused mindset, right? We do not want that people get away free with spilling out negativity in the workplace, right? We will ask them to exercise their brain and their heart to make better than that, and to reword in a positive manner what negative things they say, right? That fits with what Al Pacino said in the movie. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They are in every break of the game, every minute, every second, which means there are not only dangers and things that go bad, there are opportunities, right? And it's really important that we are all having a solution-focused mindset in a crisis. Yeah. Tip number 5, help your team members and team play at their very best, because that, of course, impacts positively performance, and that grows togetherness. And here, it's just a reminder from our webinar last week about how better it is to be a team player that brings out our best and others' best, and the team best, than just being a team player that brings out his or her very best, right? So help others play at their best, help your team play at its best. That will motivate you because you help, and that will motivate everyone around you. Tip number 6, say, I believe in us. As you speak with your team, we can do more, we can do even better. And I want to take a little moment to tell you a real story. A few decades ago, actually, in California, there was this primary school with small children, perhaps age 7, yeah? And some professors who were doing a survey came to meet those little children on the first day of the school year and gave them a questionnaire to assess their academic potential, which means their ability to learn well. Yeah, and so they picked up the copy of the children, and the next day they came back to the school and told the teacher, please bring student A and B and C, because they are very talented. They're gonna certainly improve a lot this year. We want to let them know. So then children A, B, C came. The big professor from the university told them, wow, you're so lucky, children. You're gonna learn very well. You're gonna have better and better scores all along the year. Okay, and I'll see you at the end of the year. Then the professor left to his university, and the teacher of the class did the work, and the children learned. And at the end of the school year, the professor came back to see, and indeed what he saw was, yeah, A, B, and C children's scores had improved a lot all along the year. Now, what was interesting, there were 2 other children, E and D, who had also improved their scores a lot. And nobody had told them, hey, you're talented there. Hey, you're going to do better and better and better. Your scores will go higher. Now, of course, D and E are the really high potential children. A, B, C were actually chosen at random. The trick was the survey that the professor had done was never really looked at when that professor went out to his hotel from the primary school. He just ditched all the paper written by the children in the bin, right, rubbish bin. And the next morning, he just chose A, B, C children at random in the list of children in the class to test the assumption that when you tell someone, you can do better, I believe in you, you can do more, you can do better, then they do. And only high potential, perhaps highly driven individuals will progress all by themselves. But most of us, we need that extra motivation, meeting someone who tells us we can do more, we can do better. Think of it, use it when you can, all right? If you find someone on your way who is kind of self-satisfied, like, thank you very much, but I don't need to improve, I'm good already. Then tell them, you know, it's not about how good you are, and I'm not disputing that, right? It's about how great you can be. All right, now moving on to tip number 7, give a choice. And for that, I just rest my case on that beautiful thing Al Pacino did at the end of the movie. You remember, he told the guy, okay, we have got to find each inch by inch. We've got to fight for our brothers in the match, right? And at the end, did he tell them, okay, so now and go and kick their ass? No, he did not play that cheap trick, because that wouldn't unleash much energy. It would be an order, not powerful. What he did was very powerful. He said, now, what are you gonna do? In a very neutral tone. no order, just question. It's their choice. They have autonomy to choose, freedom to choose, and that is very empowering and very motivating. And that's part of why they were so motivated to go and win the match. And they did, by the way. Yeah. Now, tip number 8 is very much in line. Let go and empower for real. I just want to leave a picture with you. And that's probably reminding you, if you have kids, of how you've been very careful when they started to ride on the bicycle, that they don't fall, right? But then at some stage, you know you've got to let them go. And then they will fall and cry and probably bruise themselves a bit. But you'll still have to do that, because otherwise they will never ride the bike alone. Yeah. So we've got to do that. It's super motivating. Yeah. And of course, tip number 9, we've got to celebrate small wins weekly, at least one-on-one, and in meetings, especially in crisis, where you see crisis can drain our energy a lot, right? And so we celebrate small wins, tiny triumphs, little things, right? If that's what we've got, and that's good enough. And now, tip number 10, before we move to the guest interview, is to conclude your meetings in a motivating way. I want to be super concrete about this. I just want to tell you in practice what it's all about, right? You, at the end of your meeting, and instead of saying, hey, thank you, everyone, see you next week, you say, let me recap the important decisions we made. That will give the team a sense that they are a real team, because a real team is a team that makes decisions. Yeah? 2, let me remind you of important information we shared today, and that will make the team feel important. And 3, congratulate the team for a good practice in teamwork that they demonstrated. And then the team will feel that they are getting better as a team. And with this, I want to shift to a very great moment where I have the pleasure to interview the guest of the day, Mr. Nanang Chalid. Let me walk you through. I am delighted to welcome a very special guest today on the program, Mr. Nanang Chalid, who is the Vice President People of Tokopedia. Nanang has brilliantly served in senior HR roles in Unilever for many years. That's where we had the pleasure to meet the first time, in Indonesia, in Singapore, Thailand, and in Indochina as well. Now, Tokopedia, as you all know, is an Indonesian technology company with a mission to democratize commerce through technology. And in 2019, Tokopedia accounted for no less than 1.5% of Indonesia's GDP. In 2020, Tokopedia counts 90 million active monthly users and 8.9 million merchants. And Tokopedia employs 4,500 nakama. Nanang, a very warm welcome to the program. We are delighted, and it's a joy and a privilege to have you on the show. My first question would be, Nanang, what does this beautiful word of nakama for Tokopedia's employees stand for?
Thank you, Jean-Francois. Firstly, I also want to say thank you for inviting me. It's an honor for us, for me and Tokopedia, to be part of this community of people who aspire to be a better leader. So nakama, right? So nakama is actually very interesting. It's coming from this word from a comic or manga. It's a Japanese comic, One Piece. That's actually the series. And then this word was actually coined out by our founder and co-founder, William Tanuwijaya and Leontinus Alva Edison, because we believe that just like that One Piece story, we are in a ship, right? In a journey to achieve that great dreams about, democratizing commerce through technology in Indonesia, which is very important for the nations and then very close to our heart. So that's the nakama. So then nakama means in Japanese actually friends, compatriot, comrades kind of thing. And then in the story of One Piece itself, you could be a chef, but by the time, the fight has happened, you need to also be part of the fights in the front line, and then the other way around. If you're soldiers, but nobody is cooking, then you need to be a chef, That's a spirit of togetherness, of feeling at the same time we are more than just colleague. So that's what nakama is. It also makes a lot of our employees feel unique, feel pride. And it's very easy for me in HR to call them like, nakama assemble kind of thing,
I love that. So love that. And it's interesting, you know, you very kindly invited me to speak at the company, right? About a month into
Yes.
this, and I could feel that
Yes.
togetherness. And also, Nanang, I was very surprised that 1 month into the crisis, the spirits of Nakama was really high. And so my question is just, how did you make it possible that the morale of employees was so high after the crisis struck?
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Again, by the way, thanks for coming. That was a great session. A lot of nakamas actually share their appreciation. You know, they never expect would be able to meet a global board of ICF. Yeah, we were 2019 global board of ICF, so it was a great session that everyone remember. Now back to your questions, right? So what we actually did, Jean-Francois, is that we put Nakama first, we call them. So we actually single-mindedly do this campaign of hashtag Jaga Nakama, means that we need to protect our Nakama, you know, at all costs, right? And then that came from a financial perspective of making sure that we look into all non-salary and benefit kind of line by line. So then we managed to avoid what several other tech companies in Indonesia actually did by forcing their hands to letting go people. We didn't do that at all. We don't even we didn't even did any pay cut, for example, the monthly pay cut not even happened. So we managed to protect that Jaga Nakama employment and so on. But I think beyond that, what I really actually feel grateful and proud of is that me and my team was decided to pioneering a lot of things. We pioneer probably this is like the most productive period in my HR career because we innovate a lot. So for example, we created this end-to-end high-tech, high-touch Nakama experience ecosystem. We have an online health ecosystem, means that there's a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 kind of you know, ecosystem, means that when you are sick, right, there is a series of questions that you can just answer then to let us know whether it is something that we need to treat virtually or you need an online like face-to-face but through a video conference talk with the doctor, or you need to go to the doctor and hospital itself where we do a triage. So this whole thing, for example, is something that our Nakama appreciate. The second one, not just physical well-being, we actually go into the mental well-being. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 services, in a touch of a button, you can talk to a standby counselors. And then if, let's say, it needs certified psychologists, then that Nakama can then move into the next year by having that online psychologist talking to you. And then if, let's say, even needed, when there is a more serious kind of concern that need to be tackled, we even facilitate a resource or support group. And then it's all trained by a confidential environment with our vendor, with our partners, right? And then so on and so on. So I think there's a lot of things that you did. And then what was surprising is that you were actually saying, you know, the morale seems high. So we actually did a survey, like an employee survey that we usually do. And out of the last 3 years, because we did the survey just 3 years back, we are only 10 years old company, by the way, 11 years old this year. We actually scored the highest during this crisis period. The employee engagement score is the highest, you know, in terms of percentage, like 80% score out of 100, you know, 4 out of 5, for example. And then that was the highest ever in the last 3 years of Tokopedia's employee engagement history. And then that's actually how I think that's how we built that spirit until now. So after 6 months and plus now, although we all working from home, but we keep all this engagement high, and then we start hiring again, all these things. So hopefully now crisis is receding in a way, then we can move again, continuing our journey to that purpose of democratizing commerce through technology in Indonesia.
That's right, Nanang, and what a lesson in showing how the company genuinely cares, right? And then, of course, it's almost logical, right? Morale soars. Nanang, thank you so very much. We're going to be back with you in a short moment for the Q&A session. Thank you so much, and see you.
Sure.
And this is our time already to move to the Q&A. And I want to thank again Nanang, the VP People of Tokopedia in Indonesia, right? The Amazon of Indonesia, amazingly successful for demonstrating in such a beautiful and complete manner how the genuine care of the company for its nakama, its employees, tested time and again, and in particular in this crisis, kept the engagement actually at a very high level, and it came out to be the highest ever. Now, question and answers, and Terry, I'm very curious, what's coming up in our Q&A box today?
Thank you, Jean-Francois. The first question we have is for Mr. Nanang. Mr. Nanang, sir, how do you make sure the people team in Tokopedia is on board and driving all the actions despite the adverse circumstances?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So how do we actually rally people team to drive all these changes and makes Tokopedia and Nakama in specific are in the high morale, entering the crisis, right? So one thing that we did was we, kind of making things more simplify things, right? So we single-mindedly goes into one directions, and that direction is actually a hashtag Jaga Nakama, so protecting Nakama, and the bigger vision of People Team is also just like any other tech company. We make it very simple. We call that anything we do in People is all about make the shift. So the hashtag is hashtag make the shift, and the shift stands for S for small or simple, H is for human, I for impact, F for fun, T for tech driven. So how can we in People making things more simple, more human, more impactful, more fun, and more tech driven? And that's exactly the spirit of all the innovation that we do during the COVID-19. And I think by the time it's simple enough for my team member to understand it, so we have a 50 plus strong people team in my organization. So these 50 people then rallying themselves into that vision of making the shift and Jaga Nakama, on protecting Nakama, and then all these ideas just pop up. I think one of an example is that we issued a work from home playbook, and that work from home playbook was downloaded, viewed, 25,000 times in LinkedIn. And one of the things that really interesting is that playbook is basically like an infographic. It's like a very fun. There's a lot of pictures and so on and so on. And it even has a Spotify playlist where, whenever Nakama, and then again, that's a blind spot for me. I mean, for me, work from home is like focus, right? But for them, for the millennials, for example, the audience of Nakama, if you want to work from home, you also need to have the right music to accompany your work, right? And so we have this crowdsourcing playlist. Wherever you also have a good song, you can also add it to the playlist. This kind of thing was very, very interesting. And then that was really what makes the work suddenly fun. And all my People team was really gung-ho going into that changes that we drive in that managing crisis in Tokopedia.
Wow, again, so much care, right? And so much smarts into finding solutions, right? So very well done. Thanks a lot. That's awesome, Nanang. Wow, cheers.
Thank you, Mr. Nanang. The second question that we have is for Mr. Jean-Francois. Jean-Francois, sir, Tokopedia is super fair to its employees. What advice would you have for a leader whose team feels their company is not fair to them?
I want to say is first acknowledge the situation to your people, right? And say we're going to discuss that. And something really important you've got to do is to demonstrate that it's not the intention of the company to be unfair to their people, right? And then give them a choice about which mood they want to show up at work with over the coming weeks, in fact, right? So in essence, tell them You know, I've understood that there is a perception that the company is not fair towards us or some of us, right? And I want to discuss that because it's really important. And if the reason, for example, is salaries have been decreased indefinitely by 20%, and people are complaining that they don't know when salaries will be back up again, then tell them, yes, it hurts. It hurts you, it hurts me, it hurts all of us. We can't buy nice things we wanted to. We've got to be very careful that our spending every month does not exceed what we have in the bank account, right? And we didn't do that before, right? So yes, it hurts. And at the same time, what I want to say is the company's intention has never been and will never be to be unfair to us, because you and me, we are the company, right? In this time, the company is not aiming to churn a dividend to shareholder. The company is fighting very hard to overcome this crisis, and that takes sacrifices on many levels and from us too. And it's fighting for a better future for the company, which means for us, in fact, right? So then, of course, you and me, we have a choice, right? We can be negative, pessimistic, in a bad mood, right? That will change nothing. Or we can think the inches are everywhere. Let's look at what we can do rather than complain about stuff that are unavoidable, right? So let's brainstorm. What can we do, right? And then you launch a discussion. And at the end, just like Al Pacino, you give your team members a choice. All right, having said all of that, and with all of these ideas, what are you going to do? Yeah, we don't have more time for questions. Thanks very much for playing the game alone. And thanks again, Nanang, for those moments of sharing that were so inspirational and very practical as well. We can do all of that if we put our minds onto it. Thanks so much. I want to share with you just 2 pages of tips that you can read later from my good friend Marshall Goldsmith, who is one of the most famous coaches around the world. And it's about demotivating habits to stop. So here are the 2 pages that you can read at your convenience, right? There are 20 of them, and they are highly demotivating and totally in our control. So if we want to stop them, we can, right? And that's the 2nd page. Playing favorite, for example, is something that is super demotivating because it's not fair, right? And then just to recap quickly, start with why, take a chance to remind your team members about the purpose of the business, and perhaps even better, reinvent it to some degree to brave and overcome the crisis. And at the same time, I'm inviting Teddy to share in the chat box the slide deck download link. So before we part, you can download the slide deck and perhaps print it and discuss it with the team, yeah? And then tip number 1, listen for real. Find out the motivation boosters of your team members one by one, activate them afterwards. Make your team members aware that they learn on the job a lot, yeah? Demand that each negative comment is rewarded with a solution-focused mindset, yeah? That's the pay, in a way, that's the funny price to pay for being a pain, right? Help your team members play at their best, and your team as well. That will grow togetherness. Say, I believe in us, we can do more, we can do better together. Give choices to the team like Al Pacino did. Let go and empower and give choices to your team, and celebrate small wins, and eventually conclude your meetings in a motivating way. With this, I'd love to say my coaching masterclass for leaders from around the world is going to start pretty soon, and you're most welcome to consider joining. We'd love to have you there. It will just take your coaching skills in this crisis to the very next level, and a lot of benefits come from that. So take time to browse, and I think Teddy is sharing in the chat box as we speak a page on the web where you can have lots of information, watch videos, and just enjoy yourself discovering what's up in there. Yeah. Now, what's coming up next is an exceptional guest. As we were privileged to have Nanang today, we are privileged to have Miss Larche in 2 weeks' time. She will really confront the questions. Are we really working better remotely? Are organizations better off with remote work? What are good practices that some companies have developed that help make the best from the new ways of working? So plenty of great practical ideas to consider, and also a very enlightened take on those new ways of working and how we can make them work for us. And then 1st of October will be a session on strategic planning. So finding how you can strategize your rebound from the crisis with a very special guest as well. And for now, I'd love to offer the usual e-gifts to you. The first one is an article where I go in the 10 motivation tips in more depth. The second one is from McKinsey, an article about how leaders can engage employees during the return to work period. And then gift number 3 is a session that Nanang Chalid, our great guest today, and I offered to the Nakama, the employees of Tokopedia in Indonesia. And we discussed leadership in adventurous style. So quite some fun there out there. And the last e-gift is a motivational video where I go through a number of tips you can use and very practical ones as well to motivate your people. Some of them are some I talked about today, and then there are others as well. And then with this, I really want to thank you wholeheartedly again for being loyal and enjoying the webinar. I can't wait till Wednesday, 17th of September to be with you all again and discuss our new ways of working and how we can make the best from them. Stay well, unleash more and more of your greatness and lead greatly in this crisis. And just for now, enjoy that stretching moment we are so privileged to have Jonathan offer us. See you very soon. Stay well.
Hello everyone, welcome for the 5th video of our series, How to Reduce the Negative Impact of Office Syndrome. Today we are going to stretch the legs, the quads in particular. Very simple exercise. I can use a chair if I'm not sure about my balance. I will just grab my feet this way, and I'm going to try to bring my knee back as much as I can. I have to make sure that I keep my body straight. Okay, if I bend forward, that won't work. So body straight, and I bring my knee back as much as I can. I try to touch my glutes with my heel, all right? And I hold the position for a couple of seconds. Once again, 5 to 10 seconds. And then I go on the other leg. Same principle, I try to bring my knee back as much as I can, maintain my back straight, and hold it. This way. I can go for a second round. Okay, so once again, I hold the position for a couple of seconds. All right, let's go on the other leg. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this exercise and see you in the next video for the following one.